Okay, so today is all about wizards. It's a pretty straightforward day. It's a pretty easy day. We're going to have Access do most of the work for us. In my Outbox, in Lab Demo 4, there's a market database I'll be using. If you want to play along, great. Just copy it over to your desktop before you try to use it. So you can just drag and drop it on your desktop. And we'll go from there. All right. Enable content. Okay. So, and I probably should do this so you can see the top of my ribbon because I'm going to be using that a lot today. That looks good. There we go. Okay. So, we'll start off with the query wizard, and we'll move on from there. So, create. This time over here, we're going to use the query wizard to do some special tasks for us. Makes our life a lot easier. So I'll just start that. And there's 4 different kinds of wizards in here. The simple query wizard is what it says it is. It's for simple queries. But at this point, you can do a much better job and much faster than going through that. But that's what it's for people who've never used Access before. You can't do a lot with it either, by the way. It's not very powerful. The other ones that are nice to do with the crosstab query, where I want to do a count or calculate the average by some groupings and that sort of thing. This works very nice. It has a little graphic thing to show you how to do it. So I'll just do one. I'd like to see a count of email addresses broken down by, or email domains broken down by state. Okay. So you just start up the crosstab query wizard. And you get this little thing down here, and the thing at the bottom is sort of what the thing is going to look like when it's all done, so you can use that to help visualize what's going to happen. So I want state and email domain. There's a rule of thumb I learned many years ago. It's served me well over the time. When you build a cross-tabulation table or something like that, they generally look nice if the field that has the most categories is the row thing, and the next field that has the second most categories is the column, and then you fill in the other ones wherever you want. So I've got state and domain. There's more states than domains. So anyway, you pick the table, households, and then you pick what's going to be the row thingy, which is state. And see how it fills that in over here? It says, okay, states are going to go here, and then you can go next. And I said email domain, so you can pick that, and then you can go next, and then you say household, and we'll just do the count, and then you pick whatever statistic you want in there. And again, you can see what's being built across the bottom as we go through this, and then you say next. What do you want to call it? That's good enough. Finish. There the thing is. Okay. So that's pretty straightforward. Now then, here's another trick that you do. Say I wanted a count of kids by state by email domain. This is households, but now I want to see kids broken down by that same thing. Now that's in 2 different tables. All right? The kid information is in the kids table, and the household stuff is in the household table. So, easiest way to do this is create a query first that pulls again the information, and then we'll use this wizard, and we're done. So all we need to do is make a simple query, just kind of stuff we've been doing for the last couple of weeks here. Household, kids, and I need state, domain, and household ID number from kids. Should do it like that, okay? And then I can just run it once, test it to make sure, okay, that looks great. Close it. We'll just save it. Save it as query 1. So that's pretty straightforward. So you use one query. If it's on multiple tables, you use one query, pull everything together, because that creates that table that we just saw. Now all we have to do is go into the query wizard, pick crosstab again. Down here in the middle, where it says, see where it's highlighted tables? There's the one called queries, so just pick that one. And we'll pick query 1. the one we just created. Next. And then I said I wanted state for the row, and then we go next, and I wanted email damn name for the columns, and then HHID count like that. Next. Finish. And there it is. Okay. No fuss, no muss. Easy enough to do. Okay. So when somebody says, do you want this kind of query? First thing you have to think of, well, is all the information in one table? If it is, just go to the cross-tab query, create the thing. If it's on multiple tables, build a simple query like that, pull together just the fields you need, save that query, and then move on to this. Okay, and you're done in less than a minute. All right. So any questions about cross-tab queries? Okay. The next one I'll just talk about briefly, just so you know it's there, because it's hard. It's a hard thing to write a query for. Sometimes you'll get fresh data that you want to put in your database, and you'll discover that people are in there. You're not for sure if there's duplicates in there or not, and you want to find out because you want to take the duplicates out because I want to add these adults to this thing. Well, it turns out there are some duplicates in here. I solved this thing with some duplicates. So instead of us spending a lot of time trying to write that complex query, we can just use the wizard to do it. Find duplicates. Okay. New adults happens to have extra adults. It has multiple instances of adults in there. Okay. What is the thing that's duplicated? That you know that they're the same person, the same kid, car, whatever. Well, we know it would be by HHID and adult ID. Oops. I hit the wrong thing here. Oh, let's try that again. HHID, adult ID. All right. So if we find a match in there, that means the same person's in there twice on those two things there, right? Okay. So then we go next, and then what do you want to see in your output table? Well, if we have those two things, then we can go back and pull out whatever rows we need, whatever records we need. So we'll just leave it at that. Next. Finish. Yes. Okay. And there it is. And it tells me that there's those people, and it tells you how many times they're in there. So all those people are in there twice. Okay. So then what you'd have to do, it's a long process, you'd have to go back into the new adult table. 1009's in here twice, it said. Let's see, we'd have to do something like this. Okay, so and then you'd have to look at those two rows to see which one you want to keep, and then you can delete one of them, knock one out, or something like that, because you're not for sure which one you want to keep. One might have better information, all that sort of stuff. So generally speaking, this is one place where you probably hand edit the thing. You could just look at those two and figure out which one of those two you wanted to keep, which one of those two records. Or you might want to somehow take some of the information off one record, put it on the other one, and combine them. So anyway, eventually you get the thing straightened out, and you can duplicate the thing, and then you could add those adults to the adult table. All right. Now the last one is really useful because it does something you can't do any other place. Last week we were asking sort of questions like we'd like to see households with kids in them or households with cars or whatever and stuff like that. Sometimes you want the opposite of that. I'd like to see households with no kids or households with no cars or something like that, right? Because, if I'm selling cars, it'd be nice to know which households didn't have cars. I could maybe sell them or whatever, right? So what we're looking for are people who are in one or records in one list that aren't in the other list. So to do that, again, we use the query wizard. And it's called Find Unmatched Query. Okay. So let's say I'm looking for households that have no kids. All right. Households without kids. So when you walk through this, you pick the one that has the most records in it, the master one. This case would be households. So we pick households. From this list, What doesn't exist in the second one? And the second one in this case would be kids. How are those two tables logically related? Well, it saw that we had, them related, so it said, well, this is how I think it should do it. If that's not right, you pick the field that you want to match on. But that's what we want. What do you want to see in the output table? Well, if we know HHID, then we know everything we need to know, because we can use that later in other queries to pull in whatever information we want. But this will just give us a list of households without kids. And then we just go next. What do you want to call this? That's a pretty good name, it seems to me, households without kids, so we'll just stick with that. And we're done. How hard is that? Okay. So now I can see there's 564 households that have no kids. And if I want to use this in other queries, I can just do the thing I showed you last week where you have, use the query as part of, this table here as part of another query. Okay. All right, now then. One thing that you need to know about this. This is in the design view. And this looks like, if you went there and built this query so it looked exactly like this, you still wouldn't get the same answer. It turns out that they did something behind the scenes that there's no way to access through this designer. And I'll just show you this. I don't expect you to know much about it, just so you know what's going on. Every time you run a query, it's turned into something called structured query language, and then it's run. So it's turned from that graphic into this. This is how we used to have to write queries a few years ago in databases. In fact, a lot of people still do it this way. Anyway, there's something in here that's not settable by the GUI. So the only way you can do an unmatched query is learn this or run the wizard. And I highly recommend running the wizard. Okay. Just because it's the only way it's going to work. All right. So Query Wizard, a great tool when you need it. I'd use it all. I use it for any one of those three kinds of queries to be the best way to go. Any questions about them? All right. So in the outbox someplace, there's this thing called Access Student 4 in the lab demo 4. And there it is for you. Do the practice one stuff, and then we'll go on.